And you're very welcome along to Tuesday morning's OTB AM. We're here with you all the way until 9:30 this morning. As ever, if you want to get in touch with us, you can leave us a comment on any of the streams, or however you're listening to this, you can always tweet us with the hashtag OTBAM. Owen, how are you?
Very well, how are you?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. It's a big day for Irish golf. Harrington is going to be named the Ryder Cup captain. A bit of a poison chalice when you get the away games. Yeah, obviously, like, nobody ever wins away matches.
No, it's a brave move. But it's also, do you get some sort of pride from this? That we're going to have 3 Irish captains in the last 4? Is it something that we should be proud of?
I mean, I'm delighted for Harrington.
Yeah.
Like, genuinely delighted for Harrington. Darren Clark, that was all about Darren.
You're on the Dave McIntyre side on that one.
Yeah. So, look, and McGinley obviously made a brilliant success out of it, so I think this is the type of thing that will very much appeal to Harrington. Yeah,
well, like I was going to go full. It's a great day for Irish sport. I don't think it's quite that. If Padraig Harrington ends up winning in Whistling Straits, then it's like, that's pretty cool. And that is a huge challenge that he has, and he knows exactly what the challenge is. You do wonder if the list of candidates is shorter when it comes to the away trips. You suspect that anybody would want to take the Ryder Cup captaincy at any possible point, but if anybody had a choice, they want us to be in Europe.
Yeah, totally, absolutely. And I would say that there was a sense that if he doesn't take it now, he might not get it in 4 years, because you got to take it when your time comes, because there's always a bunch of other people coming through, like Sergio Garcia might be ready by the time it rolls around again. But at the same time, I think Padraig Harrington probably has a case to go, I'm going to take one of the home ones. So I'd say he could have waited, and I'd say he is being pretty brave, and I'd say that's probably in keeping with his character.
If Padraig Harrington, so like obviously the captaincy, you can compare it to a managerial role in the Premier League. If he is one Premier League manager, who is he? I dare say he's closer to the Ole Gunnar Solskjaer school of thought than he would be to the prescriptive sort of Pep Guardiola school of thought.
He's Pep Guardiola. He's interrupting players in the middle of their backswing going, now hang on a second, why are you doing that? I'm just going to show you how it's done, and then you're going to do it the way I just showed you.
Is he? Well, I guess his analysis on Sky Sports would suggest that, all right, he was quite cutting and quite incisive when he needed to be, and there is that layer beneath him. I'm kind of thinking on more of a surface level. You think of the benevolent man who's like, I'm going to make my team happy, and they're going to play good golf because they're happy.
Maybe more Mourinho, and like everybody's going to be on a constant state of heightened alert, and we're at war perpetually.
Kind of like Tom Watson in whatever that was, 6 years ago at this point.
I think his character was like, I'm the best golfer in the world, I'm going to rip my swing apart and change it again.
Yeah. Like that is, there's definitely an element of that in terms of being very, very self-critical. But when it comes to the Ryder Cup, how much can he actually teach a guy?
Well, I mean, that's the whole thing. You can't.
You can't, obviously. Exactly. It's all about having a happy camp.
I mean, there's literally nothing you can do beyond making sure the fish are blue and yellow.
Well, precisely. And the ability of Thomas Bjorn to do that this year, I'm not even sure how responsible he was. Like, how lucky was he that he managed to stumble upon Mollywood? Maybe it was the biggest stroke of captaincy genius we've ever seen, and it was all down to Thomas Bjorn. But I dare say that on day one, when he saw the two guys playing well together, he was like, well, this has worked out well. I'm not splitting this duo up at all. And you've got to give credit to a captain for realising what's going well and sticking to it.
I think that's it.
I think you could overcomplicate the role a tiny bit, but then again, you look at some of the people that they brought in terms of other experts from other areas of the field to kind of come in and talk to the players. Like I think McGinley did that during his captaincy, which you could say is an overcomplication, but it worked.
Well, if they win, everything works, right?
Well, that's the thing. There is a lot of revisionism when it comes to Ryder Cup captaincies.
Yeah, totally. The other big story that, well, it's not really a big story, but it's just this kind of constant simmering tension in the background between the Rugby Football Union, the English clubs, and it's now spilled over. So the Civil War was like a 316-page dossier was released yesterday, leaked yesterday about a breakaway and the potential for the English clubs to break away from the RFU if relegation continues. And today the stories are all about, maybe we'll downsize the European Cup. It's like, leak. And the headline is about tournament could downsize to protect player welfare, which is clearly bollocks. It's downsizing because the English clubs don't want to play in Europe, and they want to put all their money in the, whatever the Premiership is called, whatever.
Gallagher Premiership.
Yeah. The Guinness Littlewoods Premiership, whatever. Pretending that this is under the guise of player welfare is one of the biggest, stupidest lies that we're trying to be sold here. Like, this is one of the best tournaments that rugby has going for it. It's really good. The players clearly like it. The clubs clearly, actually, when they get involved, like it. The quality of rugby is better than anything we see week to week in any of the competitions. Pro 14, Top 14, or the Littlewoods Gallagher's Premiership story.
I think it's just Gallagher. I think Gallagher have the sole exclusivity on that one.
I think this is nonsense, but it's going to happen because what the Brits want, they get so far. So far, the rest of Europe has bowed down in front of them and said, okay, yeah, grand, you can cut the tournament, you can play it in these dates, we can make sure that it's like before the end of your season. No, it's time to say, okay, grand, don't be part of this. We'll have it with the French and see what happens.
Well, that would kill a huge element of it, though, right? There's no way the Champions Cup maintains any of its sort of current prestige without the English clubs in it.
They'll be back.
Do you think so? How long?
They'll be back. I don't know. But
is this not a bubble that's growing and it's not going to stop for 5-10 years at this point at least? Given the idea of a breakaway, given how quickly this has happened as well, because
none of them make any money.
None of the Premiership clubs.
All is money. So like, they're like, if you're saying that these are titans of business who've made loads of money and know exactly how the sport should be governed into the future, that's nonsense. Show me the track record of them making money. Show me where they've actually built a successful rugby team that has been self-sufficient, as opposed to what clearly happened over there was that loads of teams broke the salary cap for years, and then they started to raise the salary cap so you wouldn't have to break it anymore, and then the club started losing money. It's like, it's really simple economics, and they haven't built a sustainable sport. They're flogging their players. They've completely ruined the English national team, which is one of the main drivers of growth in terms of the sport itself, because it doesn't have a grassroots that's strong enough to just keep pumping numbers out. And they're not dealing with any of the issues that they have. Instead, they're shouting on about cutting the number of games that they'll play against their European teams, when actually those games should be getting a higher profile and more money. Anyway,
they're talking about reducing it to potentially 3-team pools. Well, they talk about the idea of having 4 pool games, so I presume that would be the plan. But like, you talk about the lack of profit when it comes to Premier League or Premiership rugby teams. Is there not talk of a huge increase in revenue that's going to come into the franchises? Like, obviously, the thing is, when it comes to basic economics, if you get more money in, you're probably going to end up pumping more money out. The salary cap will go up, and you'll still be in just as dire a state as you currently are financially. So that probably won't solve things. But they're certainly looking at the way the trend is going in terms of the money coming in, and that's certainly on the rise.
I mean, they just took a lot of money from this VC firm that made billions out of Formula 1, but like, Formula 1 and English rugby are slightly different scales. Formula 1 is this massive global enterprise with 100 years of advertising money pumping into it and a bunch of different people who want to spend money on it. Rugby in England is definitely growing, but hasn't yet reached a point where you still don't have the players. 3 weeks ago, there was one of their best players talking about how it's still a classless sport in England, and the attendances aren't high enough for the teams to sustain themselves. The television audiences aren't high enough yet for the TV companies to continue putting in like the super money which will transform it. At some point, possibly, there will be a league that gets enough TV money to be profitable, but we're not there at the moment.
Well, my question is, why is there an organisation who've been involved with Formula 1 and know how sports entertainment works, why are they pumping money into the Premiership instead of looking at the alternative? Now, I'm not sure what sort of financial state the crowd that run the Champions Cup are in, but are they in a position to take money off whoever's running Formula 1 or other big sports entertainment behemoths? I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot there in terms of the nitty-gritty of this, in terms of who's actually financing this, but I would certainly be a little bit cautious of the idea that the Premiership is getting this money. It is attractive to somebody.
So the Premiership is owned, there's a number of the founding clubs of the Premiership own a share in the Premiership, and they all have an equal share. It's like, for some reason I think it's 13, I'm not sure, I can check that and we can come back to it, but so that entity is owned by those shareholders. The European Champions Cup is a separate thing which is owned by the individual countries, unions. So you can't sell this thing because you don't have clubs to partake in it if you don't have clubs to participate in it.
It's a more sponsored-based thing.
Yeah, like, what are you selling if you sell the European Cup?
Yeah.
What is the shareholding in? Whereas the nuts and bolts of the league is what the clubs own. And so that was the great error that the RFU made, was not owning that league and insisting that, or taking in part ownership of all the clubs somewhere along the way and saying, okay, we'll have 50% of the clubs of each club, and we'll pay the wages of all your players, and you guys go about doing all the rest of the stuff.
It does seem it's too late to get back to that point now.
Yeah, maybe not. Like, maybe that just league goes bust. Like, the Championship in England had a massive TV deal with ITV Sport, whatever that TV channel was called, around 2000, 2002, and it went tits up. And it was a little bit later, 2004. And when that went tits up, the whole thing crashed. And somebody had to come in and kind of go, okay, well, this is how this is going to be organised from now on. And that's how the organisation that is the Championship and the league started to organise themselves. So, I mean, maybe we just have to go through this cycle of boom and bust. But the way it's being run at the moment, and the way they're trying to sell this lie to us about, oh, we need to have a smaller, shorter competition because the players are playing too many games. Well, you know, you have massive squads. You could limit the number of minutes that your players play if you wanted to. But instead, you're going to actually ruin this competition, which is really good.
And the thing is, they're talking about the solution being a reduction of like 2 games. Like, what's the real benefit there? It's not like a massive overhaul where you're going to lose 10 games a season. It's still 2 games you're losing if you're going to go down to 3-team pools, reduce the whatever it's going to go down from to like 16 teams or whatever it may be. Like, that for me isn't a welfare overhaul that's going to get you and get the sport into a required place where it needs to be.
Maybe there's no quarterfinals if you play 16.
All right, so 4 less games.
Yeah.
3 less games.
I mean, the English clubs aren't obviously making the quarterfinals anyway at the moment.
That's it. The player welfare is not a problem for English teams in the Champions Cup at the moment.
Andrew Irving says, if the English clubs leave, I'm sure you could tempt the top teams in South Africa to form a new competition with the Pro 14, Top 14 and South Africa. I mean, you take them out if like, it definitely looks like the top South African teams are being cozied up to by the Pro 14, and that would transform the quality of the Pro 14 if you got the good South African teams to play here.
Yeah, totally. I mean, perhaps the current 2 being in there show that it is logistically possible to do so, and we know that the South African teams in Super Rugby aren't exactly satisfied with their situation either. They're there for the taking if you get to that situation. It would definitely be a good situation if the English were out and we had the big South African teams on our side, if we can call it our side. That gives us a pretty good hand in the game of chicken that this will ultimately become.
Yeah, well, suddenly that becomes a market that's worth watching, and those games are good and the intensity goes up and everybody's happy. Darren Doheny, says, completely agree in the English clubs. How can the RFU stand up against the money of the clubs in the Premiership? Jar's right. The clubs will be back as soon as their debt becomes unsustainable. Hashtag OTB AM. Yeah, as Emma says, what the English clubs are saying is they want to leave Europe, but you know, they want to retain all the rights that being part of the European Rugby Championships gives them. They want to be part of the Heineken Cup. They want to have their beer and drink it, basically.
Yeah, Gallagher Premiership means Gallagher Premiership.
Gallagher, Harrington's, Boddington's, Rumblow's Cup.
Betty Crocker.
Top of the show, we've done English rugby clubs, the 10 most valuable footballers. We're going to get to that. Will we do that right now? We may as well. Yeah, okay, so we're bringing that in the papers. Bernard Jackman's going to join us around about 8:10 this morning. He's going to talk to us about the depth chart in the front row. We're going to run through the depth chart of every position in the Irish rugby team between now and the start of the Six Nations. It's obviously a bit of a movable feast, given that Robbie Henshaw has suddenly catapulted himself back into contention, and Chris Farrell, it looks like, is out for the Six Nations. We'll get confirmation of the severity of his knee injury in the last minute of the game at the weekend against Connacht. We're bringing our sports news with Darren around about 8:35 this morning. We're going to talk Spanish football. The situation at Real Madrid is so bad that they're considering putting José Mourinho straight back in charge.
We call this.
We'll deal with that a little bit later on.
We did.
Straight away.
We called this when José was still in the Manchester United job. We actually did a piece with Graham.
I know, but I thought that was like a ha, this is never going to happen piece.
Of course. José Mourinho is a strange man, and Florentino Perez is a strange man. They are kindred spirits.
When they met, it was Moida.
It certainly was. Strange things can happen when you put 2 strange men into the footballing world together.
Yeah. All right, let's bring you through the... are we going to do the top 10 most expensive footballers?
We're going to leave that for a while.
Oh, I see Tommy going, no. He's slitting our throats there for even suggesting it. So we're going to start with the Irish Times sports section this morning, and that is Lancaster fired up for another memorable clash of champions. Toulouse, top of the table at the moment in France, unbeaten since the game against Leinster. They're pretty good. It's a sellout. It's a 1 o'clock kick-off on Saturday, and it's live on Off the Ball on Newstalk on Saturday. Yeah,
it's one that you get excited for. It's almost as if beating Leinster has just given them the sort of confidence that they were needed to realise that, yeah, we are one of the European superpowers still. It's a huge game from a Leinster perspective. It is. Like, I think in their last couple of games, you're still kind of waiting for this moment where Leinster sort of wake up and have this massive backlash where you're like, okay, Leinster are back. At what point do we start referring to Leinster as being back? Because I think they'll admit themselves that the first half of the season perhaps hasn't gone as well as some people might have expected. Maybe privately they were saying to themselves, there's no way we can back up the unbelievable form at the end of last season immediately, particularly after a fairly tough summer in terms of all the Irish internationals and a tough autumn as well. So I expect there to be a backlash again at some point from this Leinster team. And like we are talking about a backlash, we are talking about a backlash coming off the back of them destroying Ulster at the weekend. So I'm not quite sure if I'm being totally fair to them at this point. But I expect a big win at some point at the end of the Champions Cup pool stage.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was Ulster B team. There's Dottie Weir on the Irish Times. He's pictured in all of the newspapers today in his Dottie suit. Is that what it's called?
Yeah. So obviously,
you met him yesterday.
Met him yesterday. We're going to play the interview out in full tomorrow. Obviously, this is ahead of the Ireland versus England Legends Rugby match, which takes place every year. And the My Name's Dottie Foundation, a fantastic cause promoting neuron disease research, that's come on board this year. And it's just like absolutely anybody who can get behind this cause. I'm sure many people will realise what a fantastic cause it is.
Yeah, what's the sort of suit?
The suit, so it's the Dottie suit he called it when I met him yesterday. And I guess the fact that it's tartan suggests you know immediately where he's from, even though even if you've no idea who Dottie Weir is, and it's like it is what it is. He's the sharpest dressed man at the media event yesterday.
Did you try it on?
I did not try on the suit. It probably would have gone down to my ankles, to be fair.
He's a big man still.
He is a very big man. I think
that would have been a good picture, actually.
Well, yeah, that would have been kind of embarrassing, really.
I mean, think about your Instagram. You just got to think about the Instagram likes.
Putting me beside professional or former professional rugby players is always a comedic event. Me needing to actually wear their garments is not needed to actually make it funny.
Okay, so Dottie Weir was in Dublin yesterday ahead of the Ireland-England Legends match on the RDS on the 1st of February. The proceeds from that game will be split among the My Name's Dottie Foundation and a number of other charities. So he did speak to us about his life since he was diagnosed with motor neuron disease. Here's part of that chat. We'll bring the rest of it on tomorrow's show.
And that's what I've taken on board. I see a chiropractor once a week, and he says if you don't use it, you lose it. So with the muscles in your hands, try and do as much as you can. So tying shoelaces, for example, is a big thing for me. But then I keep doing it. It might take me 5 minutes, but I do it, and boom, that's a success. Drinking a pint, I can't really do it with one hand, so I've got to do it with two hands now. So we've got to adapt, and that's the kind of thing and the spirit you've got to have. But the spirit really is to try and make a difference and I just think it's outrageous in today's environment that there's not even one new drug in 25 years has hit the table to give people with MND a chance. And with a chance you need options, and there is no options. So with that, we want to try and change that.
Yeah, so that full interview we'll play it for you tomorrow. The Ireland-England Legends match in the RDS on the 1st of February supports a number of great causes, and you can get tickets for it now. So next to the Irish Independent here this morning. Byrne ready to step up if injury rules section out. That's the big news from yesterday. Robbie Henshaw is back and potentially ready for a matchday squad this weekend, but that Johnny Sexton and Devon Toner are 50-50. It's early in the week for them to be saying 50-50, so that kind of suggests it's more likely 30-70.
You'd think so. Certainly when it comes to 50-50 in the Ireland camp, it always goes to 30-70 because Joe Schmidt likes to have them involved for the entire week. Is that the same with Leinster?
They're talking about a cut-off point needing to train today to be named for the game on Saturday, so we'll see. Stuart Lancaster was definitely bigging up Ross Byrne anyway. He's benefited from sitting underneath Johnny for 3 years, and I can't give him enough credit. He's a leader, his kicking game's proficient, he's ready. That's that one. Good interesting story from Dan McDonald about Matt Doherty, poised to sign a new deal and also poised to join the Mendes camp. So at the moment, Matt Doherty's dad looks after him. He doesn't have an agent, and they seem to have negotiated a pretty good deal with Wolves last season, where he is apparently on 20 grand a week until 2021. But super agent George Mendes, who basically is the most important person at the club, not the manager, not the owner, he's the guy, he's the man. It's like, you can come and join me.
Agent of the year, George Mendes.
Yeah. George Mendes got an award when we were at the Web Summit.
Yeah.
He had a broken leg, did he? He shuffled up on crutches.
Some sort of injury, yeah. I'm not sure how he managed to sustain that, but his mantelpiece is full.
The guy from NASA gave him the award. I just remembered.
Yeah.
That was like astronaut George Mendes. Which one of these two is the...
I was saying to the lads outside that we used to get excited about Irish footballers joining Manchester United. Now we get excited about them linking up with George Mendes. It's like the new pride. I'm going to get a George Mendes jersey with Matt Doherty's name on the back of it. It's a huge moment for Irish football.
So Dan has a line here. Doherty's comfort at the top flight might mean a number of middlemen are keen to work with a player who would cost a prospective buyer more than 10 million in today's market. £10 million. I think he'd be a bit more than that, would he?
Yeah, definitely.
Good quality right back.
Yeah, I would say 20 million at the very least. Right? He's got himself to a point where he's an extremely high-profile fullback in the Premier League.
Is he extremely high-profile in Ireland? Like, if you're sitting...
Yes, he is.
If you're sitting...
Go through any player of the month in any season.
In the TalkSport studio, are you banging on about Matt Doherty half as much as we are? You aren't.
No, but if you are having a conversation about...
The best right-back in the Premier League?
Well, maybe not that, but if you are...
5 right-backs in the Premier League?
So the way Seamus Coleman used to be talked about in terms of who do Manchester United need to go and sign?
Yeah, not Matt Doherty.
Well, he's getting to that. Can he get to that level?
But Seamus Coleman and Leighton Baines were considered the best.
Yeah, no,
partnership.
Granted. I'm not saying he's at that level yet. I am saying though that if you are having a conversation about any of the top 6, looking at a fullback, I'm sure that he pops up in those conversations, is he? He's been one of the more impressive. He's to a huge amount of the Premier League audience, a new name on the scene this year as well. So I think that all adds up to a guy that you can definitely say the trajectory is firmly on the rise. And I don't see why people aren't talking about him in that way. I would say Wolves would be stupid to sell him for anything less than £20 million.
Yeah, and so do you sign with Mendes and think, well, this is a win-win? That means I'm in the inner circle, and also they're happy to sell players because that's what the point of this thing is, isn't it? I don't really know what the point of the Wolves experiment is, I have to say. Sorry, maybe I got that wrong. Maybe it's not to get Matt Doherty and sell him on and make a lot of money for the club and George Mendes.
Maybe they're thinking of creating their own Super League, kind of like the Rugby, where it's the Portuguese Premier Division and Wolves.
Yeah.
It's just a breakaway league.
Yeah. Gold standard, Wolves dump Liverpool out of FA Cup. Not a bad goal by Neves.
Neves thanked the football for his goal last night.
Did he? Yeah.
He was himself and Conor Cody were being interviewed by the BBC after the match, and the BBC presenter said to Ruben Neves, well, you obviously knew that was going into the top corner, and he was like, I have a request for Premier League that the ball is Mitra. And Conor Cody corrected him to say Mitre. So maybe that's an interesting way of getting Ruben Neves back into goals. He scored in the first day of the season with an absolute screamer, but I can't recall any absolute worldies from Ruben Neves since then until last night. It was a fantastic strike, and maybe all he needs is Mitra ball, as he says. Bless you.
Oh my God, excuse me. Yeah, so that's there's more Dotty Weir stuff there. On a knife edge, Van Gran urges Munster to embrace European pressure, and Spurs boss wants to spend 20 years in London like Wenger. Apparently he's going to go meet Wenger.
Yeah, that's what he said. He's going to get some long-term relationship advice from Arsene Wenger. How do you do this for so long? How do you manage to put up for so long? He's obviously thinking about seeing other people at the moment, but Arsene Wenger will tell him to stay committed to his one true love.
It's not a million miles away from the situation that Wenger was in, though, right? Continue to make us money, finish in the top 4, never win a trophy, although Wenger won 7 FA Cups, which I only read today. I was like, that's amazing.
Mm.
When
I thought the FA Cup didn't matter.
When we were kids, 7 was the most that any club had won. Villa had won 7, some other team, some crappy team had won 7, and Man United were just winning their 7th. And then he won 7 in his time there. It's like, what? And that might be one of the reasons why it doesn't matter. Arsene Wenger's career, generally the last half of it considered to be a failure, and all he did was win the FA Cup every year. It's like, no. The Arsenal fans are not happy with that.
That's so disrespectful.
I got the flu jab yesterday. That's what's going on here.
Is that not supposed to work the other way around, no?
They say you'll get a little bit of a head cold maybe if you're unlucky. So neck and neck. Capital rivals hard to separate in race to reach League Cup final. I mean, these games are good. These League Cup semi-finals are good.
Is it better than the FA Cup?
Way better. Under lights, knockout football, 2 good teams actually going for the stage of the tournament.
FA Cup was last night.
And Verdana heading for Bouverdere rematch. So the enemy could well come from within as Bouverdere targets a record equaling 3rd successive victory in the champion hurdle after his stablemate and Christmas hurdle conqueror Verdana Blue was yesterday described as an intended runner in the Cheltenham Festival one-day highlight. Day 1 highlight, not one day.
Back page of the Herald this morning is leading with Liverpool. Klopp's Red Cubs bitten by Wolves. So Liverpool's second string knocked out as United draw Arsenal, and Pot James to emulate Wenger's long reign as well is the other story there in the back page of the Herald this morning. The Star then is pure gold. Klopp's cup flops stunned as Ruben fires Wolves to glory. And Murphy's ruled out, so Michael Murphy's going to go under the knife. He's going to miss the first half of the Division 2 campaign for Donegal this year in the Allianz League. He is getting knee surgery. And Sexton talk is dismissed, says Derek Foley. Leinster moved swiftly yesterday to calm fears. Out half Johnny Sexton was a doubt for the Six Nations. Back page of the Mirror is You're Our Man, Ole. This is an exclusive by David MacDonald that Manchester United's players want Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in the hot seat on a permanent basis. Marcus Rashford posting on Instagram yesterday with a pretty good caption talking about it was like Solskjaer sitting down and then Rashford, Martial and I think somebody else sitting around him. Seconds left, whipped in a perfect corner. Teddy flicked it on. The rest is history. Which I presume wasn't the actual conversation, although I'm sure that's the conversation he wanted to hear. He's just kind of, is he too buddy with
sure it wasn't a real conversation?
Well, I'm not, obviously. I'm not sure. Maybe it was.
I mean, like, if you're a Man United fan, they are Man United fans, right? Rashford is, yeah. And Lingard. Like, at some point you're going to go, here, come on. Just, what happened? Tell us.
I don't think...
Not a great description by Ollie. Like, oh, you know, give us a bit more detail there.
Yeah, he's a much better orator than that, so I think if it was actually the real situation, he would have been a bit more detailed. Also, Solskjaer isn't the type of person, I think, to blow his own trumpet in that manner. Maybe it was the real conversation. I'm sure somebody will ask him at a press conference eventually. The back page of the Sun is the King's speech. Fergie tells Stars, you can make us great. So it's not just Solskjaer who's doing great stuff at Manchester United. Alex Ferguson gave a rousing speech to their stars telling them, you can make this club great again. And Dunces with Wolves is the great headline on last night's Wolves 2 Liverpool 1 match report. Klopp's Cop Kids KO'd. The Telegraph this morning is Neves seals victory with wonder goal. Klopp's men crash out of FA Cup and Lovren injury blow adds to club's defensive crisis. And finally, the back page of The Guardian is Gold Rush. Neves Thunderbolt delivers knockout blow to Liverpool, and Manchester United give an Arsenal test. They're off to the Emirates in round 4.
Yeah, okay, so between now and the start of the Six Nations, we're going to be updating our depth chart to see who will start, who should be starting, and who are the contenders for the starting positions when Ireland kick off the defence of their Six Nations crown against England on the opening weekend of the Six Nations. We're going to talk with Bernard Jackman about the front row in just a minute. First, though, here is some Keith Wood from last night on Monday Night Rugby, talking about the clubs playing weakened teams in the Pro 14 and the impact that has on the rest of the competition.
But I would look at that and say for Leinster, they put out a team to win and win well, and they did that.
Yeah.
And I don't know that you can say to a fan, you've been shortchanged. You know,
by Ulster, though, there's an argument.
Yeah, by Ulster maybe. But I look at, and Munster actually put far more of their frontline guys up to Connacht, and maybe that was for one that they thought they could actually get the win over. And, you know, that's... Like, I'm going to say, it's such as life. I get a bit frustrated by it at times, but maybe it is about not having the three of them bang. And maybe that's the issue.
That is the thing.
Maybe that's the issue.
Because the only away win across this, if we call it the provincial mini-series, was Munster away.
Yeah.
Now, we sit here and scoff at the top 14 because there's no away wins. That's just a slight danger. There's almost become it's not an unwritten rule per se, but there's generally been a trend of lesser teams going away.
Just having the three weekends, bang.
Yeah.
You're going to have to mix up the players, because you've got two big matches coming in afterwards,
and it's on the back of two big games.
But I'm going to say that's one of the strengths of the Pro 14, and I may be disagreeing with something I said a couple of years ago on it, because I'm looking at of all the other players that are playing for England, they're all injured.
Sure.
They have an unbelievable injury profile from the English squad. They've guys kind of coming back and not really getting a chance, and suddenly they're going to go and play the next two big matches, and then they've another. There's very few gaps anymore.
All right, that's Keith Wood talking about the Pro 14. I'm delighted to have got Bernard Jackman with us this morning. Bernard, good morning to you. How you doing?
Good morning, gents.
A quick word before we get to your depth charts about what Keith Wood was saying there in terms of the weakened teams. Is it a frustration for the other countries that sometimes the Irish provinces are able/allowed to put out weakened teams in these games, or does it matter?
Yeah, I think it was at the start of the season. There was a lot of, I suppose, talk about it in the media and among fans in Wales when Leinster sent a second string team to Cardiff Blues on the first night, but then they managed to win the game, so everyone had to shut up. I think in Wales, definitely there's a bit of envy around the strength and depth that the Irish teams have. I do think, though, if you look at the last weekend when Ulster had to send a weakened team to Leinster, I think maybe 3 inter-pros in a row is a little bit much. I think by the end of that weekend, or that cycle, and it's a week leading into Europe as well, where the Irish teams all are in a pretty good place, that there is that temptation to rotate. So I think the interprovincials, I love when they're fully fledged affairs. It was great to see like Johnny Sexton go down to Thomond Park over Christmas, and maybe there's an argument to play that third interprovincial somewhere else in the calendar. So when we see the Irish provinces play against each other, it's next to full strength teams, and we get a real good Irish trial scenario and see exactly where everyone stands.
Yeah, and just a word about the English teams apparently want to curtail the length of the Heineken Cup. Essentially, they're trying to introduce a fewer fixtures as under the guise of player welfare. This all just seems to be the continuing land grab of the English Premiership, really, and them trying to assert their preeminence over everything else that's happening in European rugby at the moment.
Yeah, and they've got their way with the Champions Cup to a certain extent. They broke away in terms they forced ERC to break up and change the way it's run. And this is another, as you say, land grab opportunity. I think it's really important. This is where the unions need to be very strong. Obviously, there's a very strong link with the English Union through the Six Nations. It's a massive cash cow in its own right, and if the Premiership club owners are allowed to dictate the way the season looks, you can be guaranteed that our interests won't be high on their agenda. So it's really important that the Irish Rugby Football Union, the Welsh Rugby Football Union, the Scottish Rugby Football Union, are very, very strong on this. We make sure that the Guinness Pro 14 teams are very much considered in any schedule change.
Yeah, okay. Let's talk about the depth chart, because one of the things I'm most interested in front row play is like the individual players obviously have to look after exactly what they're supposed to do, but in a scrum, do different players work well and better in partnership with other players, or are you just expected to be able to automatically work with whoever you're playing besides? I
think that was definitely the case 6-7 years ago, when the Irish scrum probably didn't have the strength and depth or the quality it has now. But I think what you've seen with Greg Feek being appointed as national scrum manager, he has a very strong influence over how everybody in Ireland scrums, and that's even how they're taught to scrummage from 16s, 18s, under 20s. So there's a lot more alignment all the way through, whereas before, a Munster tight head used to scrum differently than a Leinster tight head. So if you were a Connacht hooker, it wasn't a help to you in terms of being able to play with them, because you have such a short preparation time going into international windows. That team cohesion is usually really important. But because, as I said, Greg Feek has, and Jerry Flannery has Munster scrummage in it, not the exact same way, but a similar ethos to how Leinster scrummage or Ulster scrummage under Aaron Dundon. It's a lot easier for Joe Schmidt to come in and put the best players together. But having said that, I think if you look at the guys I've picked, there's no shocks. I mean, Cian Healy, Rory Best and Tyke Furlong have built up a lot of game time together as well. So they do know each other really, really well. But I think it's a strength of Irish rugby is that everybody's been taught to scrum with the same core principles. When Feek goes, what happens then? Well, I think there's some very strong candidates internally. I mean, I suppose the real test of someone's legacy is what comes after him. And I think if you look at, Jimmy Duffy does a cracking job with the Connacht scrum with probably, less resources than the others. Aaron Dundon has worked extensively with Greg Feek, and he's obviously, and Dan McFarland is very familiar with Greg Feek, and then John Fogarty and Jerry Flannery, are all part of this scrum development coaching group that have come through over the last 3 or 4 years that are making sure that Greg Feek has passed on his knowledge. And I think someone like John, if it comes internally, well, then you're going to have a real consistency there. And I think we should look to have. I know sometimes you want to change, maybe focus a little bit after a cycle of a coach. But I think if you look at the Irish scrum stats, we have the highest percentage of playable ball of any team in World Rugby, and that's testament to how strong our coaching is, and now, in fairness, how strong our personnel is as well. I mean, there's guys who've come through like Andrew Porter, etc., who who weren't there. We were so reliant on people like John Hayes for years, but now there's real strength and depth in all positions.
Bernard, you mentioned there a moment ago about the differences between Munster and Leinster's style a few years ago when it came to scrummaging. What were those differences stylistically, and what is the definitive Irish style right now?
The definitive Irish style is actually be very, very honest. Massive focus on 8 people scrummaging together, 16 feet on the ground, and actually not looking to win penalties per se off scrum. It's actually to have a really solid platform to play off. But yet, when they find a weakness, and when the opposition when someone in the opposition breaks rank and changes his angle, well, then obviously that collective shove that comes together will move forward. And then obviously the 8s are very smart and they keep the ball in. So our scrum is more focused towards getting the ball in and out, and giving our back line, a really good strike opportunity. The scrum is the best platform from a set piece point of view. The strike off, obviously, 8 forwards are tied in. And that's very much Joe's philosophy and Leinster's philosophy. And whereas before, I think, we all tried to win penalties with our scrum, but it wasn't through scrum dominance. It was probably through a little bit of cheating and cunningness, and everyone had different ways of doing that. Munster had their own set of calls, and we had our own set of calls in Leinster, for example. So it was very, very difficult to get that timing. In a match week of an international. So everything is it's more honest now, which sounds very basic, but it's about the philosophy of getting the ball away quickly and manipulating the angle more so than trying to win penalties. Because when you're very aggressive trying to win penalties, there's a risk of actually giving away penalties, and obviously discipline is a key factor for Joe Schmidt.
So an opposition team that makes a mistake against Ireland, basically, from what I gather here, they're screwed.
Yeah, it's about patience, basically. So the Irish team will be very, very patient. They will stay in position. They will apply that pressure for 6, 7, 8, 9 seconds. And unfortunately for opposition, or fortunately for us, is that sometimes under that pressure, somebody goes off script to the opposition. So, for example, the loose head might just kick his hips a little bit to be in a better position. But as soon as he does that, it destabilises the whole scrum. So what the Irish team have been very good at is that collective effort. The back rows in the Irish scrum will always scrum until the ball is out, where sometimes the opposition, you see their heads pop up like meerkats, and they're worried about the next strike. And then obviously Ireland would have an advantage of 8 against 7, and suddenly then we get a nudge on. So it's not a passive scrum philosophy, but they know the order in which they want things to happen. So the first priority is to have good clean ball to scrum off, or to play off for the back line, and then obviously get into our phase attack.
I don't know, did you see the TG Carr mic'd up Jerry Flannery before the game against Connacht, and he was just doing bits of like rubbing the shoulder of certain players, and this needs to be in, and just the specific details. I presume that's the type of stuff that they're working on relentlessly in training.
Yeah, day in, day out. It's all about feel. So if you look at sometimes in the heat of the moment with the crowd, etc., you can get carried away and become individual. And what he's trying to do there is just make sure that their senses are aware of where the hooker is binding. For example, I think he was talking to the title props and loose head, just making sure that their shoulders are out. It's just all about really good cues for the referee as well, and being able to feel where the strength is in the scrum and not become individualised. And that kind of thing will be coming all the way down now to little scrum clinics that are happening with the best 18-year-old props in the country. So when they go up to the next level, it's far less daunting. I mean, there was a time when you would need a prop to come out of an academy, and you might need 20 games to adapt. Whereas he still needs some games to adapt, but he's going into a system where it's very, very similar to what he's been doing. Obviously, it's like a higher level of pressure and power, but at least he's not trying to have to learn new ways of doing things. Let's
talk about your depth chart here. So first off, we're going to start with the loose head position first. So it's Cian Healy, Jack McGrath and Dave Kilcoyne here. We've got Cian Healy ahead of Jack McGrath and Dave Kilcoyne. When you think back a couple of years when McGrath was the starting loose head for the Lions, at that point it looked like he was going to be the starting loose head for Ireland for the next half decade, but Cian Healy's resurgence means that he's one of the best loose heads in the world at the moment. Yeah, and he always should have been, to be honest, and always he was when he was 23, 24, 25, and he was very unlucky. He had an injury where he lost power in his hand, but he actually managed to play through a lot of it. But his form obviously dipped because he wasn't fully 100% fit. So it was a nerve issue, which it was very frustrating. He didn't know when he was going to get back full
full power, and that affected his scrummaging to a certain extent, but it also affected his ball carrying and his tackling. But he's overcome that now, and I think what we saw was, Jack McGrath went to a Lions tour, and Keane got a proper pre-season, which he probably never had because he was generally involved in summer tours with Ireland. So, and he's an unbelievable athlete. He's probably the most powerful rugby player I'd say has ever played for Ireland, and he's back now. He's in great shape. He's probably lighter than he ever was. Similar to Kilcoyne as well. Kilcoyne has really slimmed down. He's another powerful athlete. He's in there as third choice on my rankings. And he's a guy that if he came into the Irish squad on a bench or started, you'd have absolutely no worries about him. He's a real impact player. And Jack McGrath's probably a bit unlucky. He hasn't done a lot wrong, but Jack McGrath would start for any other team, I would say, in the Champions Cup. And he would probably start for nearly every other team internationally. But we have two world-class loosehead props with those two, and it's and that's not using loosehead loosely.
Onto world class, yeah. Onto hooker. We've got Rory Best obviously in the starting role at the moment. You've got Sean Cronin backing him up, and Niall Scannell is third. There's some doubt about whether or not Joe Schmidt sees Sean Cronin as the automatic replacement for Rory Best to start matches. Certainly, when Cronin didn't start in Australia, there was serious questions asked at that point about what Joe Schmidt's intention was. But maybe that was just about a year and a half out from a World Cup, saying, "Well, I need strength and depth, and I'm not just going to put all my eggs in your basket."
Yeah, I think so. Listen, I think Cronin's in there because he just keeps getting better and better. I mean, he scored 40 tries between his Leinster and Connacht career already. I mean, there's a lot of top class wingers who haven't that kind of try scoring ratio. And I was humming and hawing about whether I actually put him number one. To be honest, I think his form is top class, and Rory definitely, is obviously his best years are behind him. But I thought Rory's performance against the All Blacks in November, he just laid down a serious marker again to say, he's the man of possession and he won't be budged. And I think Joe will be very smart. Dan McFarlane will be very smart in terms of how they manage Rory through to the World Cup. But Sean Cronin's breathing down Rory's neck. But I do think as well, I mean, Sean Cronin is a brilliant impact player off the bench, and Rory's just so important. His leadership, his relationship with referees is very smart and very strong, and he's a very, very good scrummager. He's probably a better scrummager than Sean. So I do think Rory will hopefully injury free, go to the World Cup as number one. But I certainly would go for Sean Cronin as number two, because I just think he has something that probably. Around the pitch, I don't think any other hooker in world rugby. Dan Coles in New Zealand at the best of his form is very explosive, but I think Sean has a little bit more than anyone else in world rugby in terms of his play around the field.
How can you tell Rory Best is a slightly better scrummager?
Well, this is based on my experience. Obviously, that's 5 or 6 years ago. Sean, I'm sure has improved, but Rory Best.
That's going against him, is it?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, well, I think so, and I think it will be, most of the props and locks in Ireland who played with Rory and continue to play with him would say he's the best scrummager. So it's a little bit surprising because he's not the biggest guy in the world. He probably doesn't throw around the most weight in the gym, but he's just technically incredibly strong and very flexible through his hips, and he can get himself into a much lower, stronger position that Sean could have at the time. I'm sure Sean's worked on it. But I do know, having spoken to players who are still playing, Rory Best is still regarded as the best scrummaging hooker in Ireland, which is hard to see on TV. But when you've played in the front five, or you played against hookers, there's certain hookers who have that. Shane Byrne, for example, was a phenomenal scrummager as well. And when you played against them, a strong scrummaging hooker has a massive influence on a scrum. Everyone talks about tie head props, and obviously they're very important, but a strong scrummaging hooker can make up for a lot of deficiencies in other areas of the scrum.
Is it possible for Rory Best to get the best out of himself in the Six Nations and the World Cup this year?
Yeah, I think so, but I also think that maybe Joe would be smart and maybe not overplay him as well in terms of minutes. Obviously we've got two very tough games. We've got a tough draw in total, but I do think that there won't be any mad rotation in the Six Nations. I think if you haven't played in November, barring you're out for injury in November, it's going to be very settled. But I do think in terms of, if you can get 55 minutes, 50 minutes, and rest them up a little bit, maybe not play against Italy, that'll be a big help. And also, if Ulster don't make the knockout stages of the Pro 14, or don't make knockout stages of Europe, that might just limit his game time a little bit. He missed a bit of time at the start of the season as well. But listen, it's a fine balance between playing enough to be informed and obviously not overplaying as well. But no doubt the Irish system will manage him, as best they can.
All right, let's move on to tight head. It's Tadhg Furlong, Andrew Porter, and John Ryan makes number 3 here. So, what is the scale of the difference between Tadhg Furlong and Andrew Porter at the moment?
Around the pitch, there is still a difference, but Porter is becoming more and more influential. I just think Tadhg Furlong is the best tight head prop in the world. He has no perceived weakness. He lifts very well. He tackles very well. He cleans out very well when he's legal, and he's an incredibly good scrummager, and he's as honest as days long. So Porter's very similar to Cian Healy in terms of really, really explosive. I think Furlong's got a really good balance between having enough power and explosivity, but really good endurance as well. So he doesn't crash. If you had to play Tadhg Furlong for 80 minutes, I've no doubt he could be as good in the 78 minutes as he was in the 7th and 8th. But I think Porter and Cian to a certain extent, are more fast twitch and probably don't have the same endurance qualities. Now they're very, very fit men, but Porter has that power. Porter still has to get that experience of scrummaging, against the best in the world, more regularly. He's very, very powerful, and his power and his strength get him out of trouble. But when you're someone like Tadhg Furlong, and you've had the experience he has, even though he's still relatively young for tight head, there's no scenario he hasn't been in, and because of that, he knows the solution very quickly. Whereas sometimes with younger props, they have to get into the dressing room at half time, or it's Monday morning on the review, where the coach has to show them 4 angles, and they see then what they're up against and how to fix it. So that's the beauty of having Furlong and John Ryan to a certain extent as well. He's probably come through a lot slower. But he now is a very, very capable tight head prop, and he's been around the block. So we're in a good position going into the World Cup and the Six Nations if those 3 men stay fit. Is
there anybody who is close but not in the top 3 at the moment in any of these 3 positions who might make a bolt if there are injuries or even if they're...
I think I really like Dennis Buckley and Connacht, to be honest, but hasn't really been in Joe's squad, so he's probably unlikely to bolt through. There's Tracy in Leinster. James Cronin was very in great form a year ago, but Kilcoyne's kind of pushed back over him. I think there is guys outside those 9 players for sure. We have good depth, but they're the 9 front runners.
How do we compare to other front rows around the world? Like, is the All Black front row just as good as us? Are they slightly ahead of us, or where are we?
No, we're the All Blacks actually are in a little bit of trouble scrum wise. They've suffered from the amount of props that have gone to France in particular. So their depth chart, they keep discovering new props, but the problem is they don't have. Super Rugby is a very different animal in terms of front row development at set piece compared to Champions Cup. So even though their players their young props might have 40, 50 Super Rugby games, unless they played 40, 50 internationals, they're not going to be the same level as our guys because of how important the set piece is here as a weapon. So I think our front row depth, I'd say our starting front row could go into any World 15, and our depth is as strong as any country in the world. France will have very good individuals, but because there's no alignment between the top 14 clubs, coaching styles, and the national side, when they go into the Six Nations squad with France, it's all a bit of a muddle. So you have Slimani, for example, scrummaging the way he scrummages with his club, but that mightn't be aligned to what their loose head is doing. So you don't get that unit effect and collective power that Ireland can manage.
I'm sure with the level of rugby IQ they have down in New Zealand, the All Blacks realise that this is an issue. Like, are they doing anything to combat this? Is there anything that you can see that they can do to turn it around in time for the World Cup?
Oh yeah, for sure. Listen, Mike Cron is the Greg Feek learnt under Mike Cron, and he's the All Blacks forwards coach. He's been one of the gurus in world scrummaging for probably 25 years. But there is a fine balance between. I really spoke highly about Greg Feek and the alignment between Jerry Flannery, etc. But if you look at the experience that those three loose heads have, two of those three tight heads have, and the one who doesn't have experience is Andrew Porter. He's been getting big game experience quickly, and he's in a really good environment where he scrummages against Cian Healy and Jack McGrath on a Tuesday. With international quality packed behind him, so he's not in there, with an academy team. So we're very lucky that we have. With only 4 teams and being able to keep our best players in the country, I think we're in a better position. So Mike Cron will have the IQ for sure, but whether he can't beat experience in games or internally at training, and because there's so many players leave New Zealand rugby, and now young All Blacks are starting to leave earlier than before. Historically, they waited till the World Cup cycle was over, but now they realise that there's more money to be got leaving a year and a half before the World Cup. Because obviously there's more players in the market post-World Cup. So they have started to lose some really talented players abroad earlier than before. So I think that's shifted the balance in our favour.
Brendan, we haven't spoken to you since you left Dragons. Obviously it's been a difficult enough end to your time there. Have you reflected on exactly what went wrong just yet? Have you managed to put your finger on it? Yeah,
listen, I think, I have no regrets about what we tried to do there. It was always a rebuild project. It was always likely, unless we got a lot of luck, that the next man or the man after him would benefit from it. Because don't forget, we played, and we have 21 players that debuted last year, and some of them were teenagers. So the big problem for Welsh rugby at the moment is funding, and we obviously the Dragons have the lowest funding in Wales. So there's a couple of meetings on, I think, over the next few days to try and rectify that balance, and hopefully the Dragons and the Welsh rugby will get the funding they need to be competitive. Because at the moment, it's very much the Irish teams who are looking strong in the Pro 14. And obviously Teresa doing really well, which is great, and Edinburgh and Glasgow tipped off in the last few weeks. But I think the big issue for the Dragons is funding. The good thing for me was we developed a lot of young players, we recruited a lot of young players. Results weren't good enough, so as head coach I have to take responsibility for that. But definitely I learned a lot, and looking forward to putting that in practice somewhere else.
Yeah, and that is the plan, is to go back in as a head coach. You haven't had you haven't been pissed off to the point where you're like, okay, I'm going to go and become a defensive coach or an attack coach or a scrum coach or something like that into the future?
Yeah, I would, to be honest. I would go back to being an assistant coach if it was in the right club, and it was a good head coach who I could serve an apprenticeship under to a certain extent. But I do love head coaching as well. So listen, we'll see. The fortunate thing is that when you're out of coach or out of work as a coach, you probably need someone else to be left out of work, and that's not a nice thing. So I'm going to keep myself busy and watch plenty of rugby and keep analysing and see what comes up.
You say you learnt a lot, Bernard, and I'm sure you learnt a lot about the politics of Welsh rugby and other things. But as a coach, solely as a coach, what is the biggest thing you learned?
I think you need experience through your team. To be honest, I think we did what Ulster did the weekend. We probably threw a lot of young players out at the same time, and that's not good for them either. It's too hard. It's too hard for them to learn. So a big focus over the summer was bringing in people like Richard Hibbard and Ross Moriarty, etc., to just give us a bit more of a spine in our team. And when we have to rotate, when you have a small squad and you're developing players, you will have to rotate. But I think definitely for me as a coach, last year, we didn't. I'm responsible for it. We probably put too many young players out at the same time, and while they did get experience, I think it was too traumatic for them, and because they didn't have enough experience in the side, it probably hampered their ability to learn from that experience. So having a really good balance between experience and youth was definitely key to not just winning, but helping players develop quicker.
Well, listen, enjoy the time off. I hope it's really short and that you're back in the game really soon. Bernard, thanks for making the time to talk to us this morning.
Thanks, guys. Have a good day.
Brother Jackman giving us his depth chart in the front row there, ahead of the Six Nations. We'll be doing second row and the back row later on this weekend, early next week. So, Owen, it's been a bad week for footballers.
It certainly has. There's a couple of them, you know, we love professional footballers, and sometimes you just got to feel a little bit sorry for them. The one man who everybody knows this week who's had a bit of a tough time is Wayne Rooney. His mugshot was published yesterday, arrested in December at Dulles Airport.
Great hair, though. Great
hair, fantastic hair. The hair transplant was one of the best things Wayne Rooney ever did, actually. It's really started to suit him. So the Sun were kind of reporting it yesterday, but the Sun have kind of gone above and beyond the line of duty and have quotes, not quotes as such, but a good source close to Colleen Rooney in today's paper. There's a headline that says, "Wait till I get Roo home. Wayne Rooney gets hairdryer treatment from raging wife Colleen after booze bust at US airport." And now the article says that during a blistering telephone call, she yelled, "How many times do you need to be told?" And the Sun also have these quotes, which we can show you now from a source, an unnamed source. She told him he wasn't going to go out of the house again without her supervision. Colleen was really pissed off at Wayne for getting into trouble again. She was mortified when she got the call about it and wanted him straight home. She called him an idiot for doing something so stupid. And they go on to say when he's been drinking and gets into trouble, it upsets her because she thinks it gives a bad impression of their relationship. She's told him before that people will assume he's unhappy if they see him out drinking, but Colleen did see the funny side later when she saw how ridiculous the situation was. They're loving their life as a family in the US and are moving on. So bad week for Wayne Rooney, probably a worse week for Wayne Hennessy. So Crystal Palace's Max Meyer posted this on Instagram the other day. I'm not sure if you saw it. I'm sure many people will have. So Wayne Hennessy there at the back left doing what appears to be a salute replicating a past dictator on this continent. He had to clarify his situation, Wayne Hennessy, and said, "Yesterday evening I had a meal with my teammates and we had a group photograph. I waved and shouted at the person taking the picture to get on with it, and at the same time put my hand over my mouth to make the sound carry. It's been brought to my attention that frozen in a moment by the camera, this looks like I am making a completely inappropriate type of salute. I can assure everyone I would never ever do that, and any resemblance to that kind of gesture is absolutely coincidental. Love and peace, Wayne." Now you may say that's all bullshit, but at Rob Welsh 2000, presumably a Palace fan, came to Wayne Hennessy's defence on Twitter and posted this photo. "Thought Wayne's excuse was a load of bullshit until I saw this." To which somebody replied, "This is a better save than Hennessy has ever made," which is a pretty good put down. Now, a bad week for Wayne Rooney, a bad week for Wayne Hennessy, a bad week as well for Andres Iniesta, who posted this on social media the other day because it was the Three Kings Day celebrations and two people in that photo in blackface. There has been no word from Iniesta since then, but according to the BBC, the role of Balthazar is often played by a white man in blackface in Spain. So that's the cultural context you need for that, and I think the less said about that, the better. And then finally, it's been a bad week for Frank Ribery, which is such a shame because it started off in such a good week. He went to Dubai, he met up with Salt Bay, and he got a gold-plated steak. Have a look at this. It looks disgusting. I'm not going to lie, the gold plating doesn't do it for me. Here we go, here's the money shot. There we go, Frank Ribery is Salt Bay. The caption on it was, "No better way to start the year than with a dash of salt and a visit to my Turkish brother." And there he is kissing his Turkish brother. So there was a huge backlash to this. Fans weren't happy. Some people called him ostentatious. But Ribery fired back in what will go down as the statement of 2019. Now, I should warn that if there are any young ears to cover them up, because Frank Ribery does go out of his way to really put down his haters. He says, "For 2019, let's put the dots back on the I's and the crosses on the T's. Let's start with the jealous ones, the haters, surely born from a busted condom. Fuck your mothers, your grandmothers, and even your family tree. I owe you nothing. My success is above all thanks to God, to me, and my loved ones who believed in me. For others, you were only pebbles in my socks." Then, concerning these pseudo-journalists who have always criticised me, my acts, the latest example, the price of what I eat. When I make charitable donations, because I've learned to give a lot when I receive a lot. Why doesn't the major national media broadcast this? No, you prefer to talk about a holiday that I spend with family, you scan my actions, what I eat, etc. Oh yes, for this kind of triviality, you are present. Now, Bayern have announced that they've fined Frank Ribery for his comments. They clarified that Ribery was at the restaurant as part of an ad campaign, though, so he did not pay for the steak. That is all we need to take away from this. So I'm not sure who had the worst week. I'm going to go ahead and say Well, actually, probably Wayne Rooney's the only person who's got kind of a black mark on his criminal record for probably the least egregious crime for a few sleeping tablets and a few cocktails.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd like to see some video footage of that. Somebody who had a bad week who turned it into a good week was Jason McAteer, one of the stars of the Super Sixes at the weekend. You might have seen this, you might not, but he was on the football show last night talking with Joe and Kev. Have a look.
It was a situation that escalated. Unfortunately, it was Michael Owen, because he probably was one of them players I would say would be slightly more protected or looked after. And the referee made an absolutely atrocious call and sent me off and not him. Now, I'm not saying I should not have been sent off. I was a bit petulant. I didn't kick him up the backside. I pushed him with my foot, which was a kind of like a loving kind of, go on, off you go. And Michael understood that. He didn't get hurt. He wasn't hurt by it. Now, if he wants to send me off, then fine, send me off. But Michael Owen should have been sent off for his part in that incident. And he wasn't. He was protected. And I said it on the telly. Maybe it was because it was Michael Owen and it was England, and the referees were slightly more lenient towards these kind of situations.
I've misjudged
the price.
I've misjudged the mood here. I thought we were going to come on and have a big laugh about it. Actually, but
well,
you're genuinely a bit annoyed about it.
Come on, let's lighten it up. What do you want to know?
Well, I'll tell you what I would say though.
What did Michael Owen say afterwards? You knew each other reasonably well, or did you have a year together, or no? As players?
Oh, years.
Okay. So you know each other.
He couldn't do with it. Listen, there's absolutely no problem with me and Michael Owen now. We talked each other in the car afterwards. You know, we spoke about it afterwards. We laughed about it. We put our arms. I wanted to chin his mate, like. His mate was doing it. His mate was goading me as I was coming off. His 55-year-old mate was standing up like a 10-year-old child, waving me off the pitch, telling me to go off your pop.
The Star Sixes, not the Super Sixes. Apologies for that. But yeah, you got the story. You've probably seen the footage by now. Michael Owen definitely deserved the toe up the hole, but you can't see the toe up the hole. You can't see McAteer kicking him.
There was no close-up anyway. You can see the action.
Can you?
Yeah.
The footage I saw, he was kind of pushing him away, and then it cut to Darren Bent looking confused, and then it cuts back and it's a red card.
No, and then the kick happens after that.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Oh, well, fair play.
Yeah, we saw the
right in front of the referee.
Too long didn't watch for you, was it?
Yeah, pretty much. How are you?
I'm very well, Jerry. We'll start with last night's football, and Ruben Neves scored a stunning winning goal as Wolves dumped Liverpool out of the FA Cup. The Reds exited at the third round after a 2-1 loss at Molineux. Jurgen Klopp made 9 changes from the defeat at Manchester City. Rafael Camacho and Curtis Jones made their debuts, while 16-year-old Kayana Hover came off the bench despite the defeat. Manager Jurgen Klopp happy with how the youngsters did under pressure.
I'm not sure what you all would have said if we bring immediately from the beginning, if our centre-half situation is Fabinho and Kijana, then probably a few very smart people tell me that I don't respect the competition or whatever. So yeah, try to do all the things. And of course, on the other hand side, it doesn't make sense to bring a 16-year-old boy from the start. It's better you don't bring him, we wait until he's completely ready, but he did well. He came on, he did well. Obviously, that's how it sometimes starts. When you are really needed, then you are not. It's only about if you're good enough and not how old you are. He did well, so that was all okay.
Now, Wolves' reward for knocking out the Premier League leaders is a trip to either Shrewsbury or Stoke in the next round. The FA Cup's 2 most successful sides will also meet in the fourth round. Arsenal drawn at home to Manchester United. Holders Chelsea will host Sheffield Wednesday or Luton, while non-league Barnet were drawn to play Brentford. After defeating Cardiff in the last round, Gillingham will travel to Swansea. Millwall will host Everton. Accrington Stanley will play Derby or Southampton. Brighton entertain West Brom, and Bolton go to Bristol City. 2 all-London ties as well. AFC Wimbledon host West Ham, while Crystal Palace will take on Tottenham. Portagamon got the winner for Newport. They shocked Leicester. A trip to Middlesbrough await him and his teammates, while Portsmouth will host QPR. Man City take on Burnley. It's Newcastle or Blackburn at home to Watford, while Doncaster host Oldham. Mauricio Pochettino says Spurs fans can only demand a trophy after Daniel Levy gives him money to invest in the squad. Tottenham, the only Premier League side not to make a signing during the summer transfer window. Pochettino says he cannot be judged on his lack of silverware because the chairman Daniel Levy has not given him $300 million to spend. Tottenham face Chelsea in the first leg of the League Cup semi-final at Wembley later, and Pochettino has warned that Spurs need to change their business approach.
How we operate in 4 years or in 5 years didn't change. And that is the point that sometimes the people talk about winning title. One thing is to reduce the gap with the top four, to be competitive, to create a team capable to fight with the big size. But if we want to win title, we need to operate in a different way. At the moment, we operate in the same way that we operate 5 years ago when we arrived. And of course, maybe we can win some title, but it's going to be a tough job to do, because in that situation, every club in the last 5 years was improving a lot. The other day, I saw a stat that in the last 10 years, on England and Europe, how the team were spending money, and I think we were on the bottom. Yes, in Europe, on England and Europe.
In rugby, Leinster return to the training pitch later as they continue to fine-tune preparations for the Champions Cup clash with Toulouse. Head coach Leo Cullen will be hoping Johnny Sexton plays some part to keep him in contention for selection. The Leinster out-half is rated as 50-50 after going off injured against Munster over the Christmas period. Well, Ian Keatley will likely leave Munster at the end of the season, with Italy his most likely destination. The 42.ie reporting today that the out-half is considering an offer from Benetton Rugby. The 31-year-old has been with Munster since 2011. He's made 180 appearances for the province, but this season his chances have been limited under Johan van Graan. Joey Carberry's arrival saw Keatley fall down the pecking order. He's now competing with Tyler Blyandall, JJ Hanrahan and Bill Johnson for game time. He's made just 4 appearances off the bench for the province in the Guinness Pro 14 this season. Well, in golf, Padraig Harrington will be named as the captain of Team Europe for the Ryder Cup later today. The Dubliner set to become the 3rd Irishman in the last 4 Ryder Cups to lead Europe into the showdown with the States. Paul McGinley was skipper in 2014 for the Winnack Glen Eagles, with Darren Clark captaining the side unsuccessfully in 2016. Harrington has made it clear, talking last year, that he was eager to succeed Thomas Bjorn.
Yeah, I think I would. It's obviously going to be difficult going over there trying to beat them on their home soil, but it seems to fit very nicely with everything. I have a good profile in the States, and it's not so far from Chicago, so good Irish connection there. So it is all lining up that I will put my name in the hat for that one.
Now, the Japanese kickboxer Tenshin Nasukawa has accepted Conor McGregor's challenge for another exhibition fight in Tokyo. Nasukawa was beaten by Floyd Mayweather in a boxing bout on New Year's Eve. The unbeaten boxer dropped the 20-year-old 3 times before his corner threw in the towel. McGregor challenged him by saying, "I wish to go to Tokyo to face Tenshin Nasukawa in a mixed martial arts exhibition bout. Before this summer, please arrange this instant. Yours sincerely, the champ." He got a response and he said he would fight McGregor, but only on his terms. He said, "Dear Mr. McGregor, thank you very much for remembering my name. I'm honoured that you would even consider fighting me. 58 kgs. Kickboxing rules would probably get us in the ring sometime in the very near future."
Gotta give credit to Nasukawa for, people criticise, Floyd Mayweather always seeing the dollar signs in his eyes and Conor McGregor always seeing the dollar signs in his eyes. This guy Nasukawa has managed to set up fights with Floyd Mayweather and Conor McGregor, and now wants to do it on his own terms.
Like one of the most famous boxers on the planet and the most famous MMA fighter in history, and he's going to fight both of them.
Nasukawa deserves to be world champion at hustling.
Absolutely.
Did the Mayweather thing happen?
Yeah. He got knocked out instantly.
How?
Boxed.
I thought the Mayweather thing wasn't going to happen.
No, he went into it, initially said that he didn't know it was going to be a fight. He thought it was just a joke thing for a couple of billionaires and they'd all get a few million for dancing around the ring. Then he realised he will get a few million for dancing around the ring, so agreed to it in the end, after pulling out.
And was the footage any good?
I didn't actually watch it, but I saw some photos that kind of stopped me from even watching it. Yeah, last week.
Oh, right, okay. So I had better things to be doing than watching that prick Mayweather. So I don't feel too guilty about it.
Well, speak for yourself. Some of us don't have better things to do.
You didn't see it though.
I read fight reports, which is even worse.
This is a bit like our Arsene Wenger, who won the FA Cup last season.
Let's forget that conversation ever happened.
Have you remembered yet?
Chelsea.
You done?
Yeah.
All right, good stuff, Darren. Thanks for that. Here's Pat Nevin talking about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and how he's managed to turn things around, particularly for the forward players at the club. Have a look.
Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, so far, I've realised some things are important in management. This is me talking, by the way, not Solskjaer. But I'm boiling it down to say nice things about your players and the club and tell them to pass the ball forward and sit back and see what happens.
And massage a few egos and
it's important.
Make people feel comfortable. And maybe if you haven't done a huge amount of managing at the very, very top level, you look at some of those players and say, they're quite good. Why don't you go out and do what you're good at? It's not what I want you to do what you're good at, but do it in a positive sense. And that's to take nothing away from Solskjaer, because it's clear that he's made a difference in a couple of players. Lukaku looks quite different now. Absolutely. He's running in a different way. His movement's in a different direction at the moment. I've heard him already talking about the fact that he's just been told to play with his head facing the goal. It's almost like, I can remember again, a couple of years ago, I got one lesson, my only ever golfing lesson. And at the end of the lesson, he said, just one thing to tell you, mate. See, when you finish a shot, your buckle's facing the front. Changed my game completely. Sometimes that's all you need. That one little line. And it's just a little line out. He's obviously said to Lukaku, he's looked at him and thought, stop playing with your back to goal. Yeah. Just go the other way, play on the shoulder. And he looks a different player, and he's getting into better positions now.
Your buckle's facing the front.
Yeah.
It should be facing the front, or it shouldn't be.
Well, you should be, your body shape should be, yeah, exactly. Isn't it? Why, did you think that's not?
I wasn't sure. I mean, if Pat Nevin's giving out good golf tips, let's share them with the world.
Well, so what, when you take a golf shot, your body stays kind of perpendicular to the
it
hole.
Moves, but how much does it move?
Well, it should
your
be
crotch needs to face
Yeah, it should
forward.
be a full 90-degree movement. You can come to me for swing lessons anytime.
I guess you live and learn. How is your golf game?
The first time I ever played golf, a club went flying about 100 yards, and it was in the middle of like 50 people.
Oh, did you hit someone?
Very close.
Okay.
It's a kind of a very traumatic story. We'll get to it some other time.
That was from the football show last night. Let's talk with Graham Hunter. Graham, good morning to you. How are you doing?
Crotches, swinging, and buckles. What have I strayed into?
Yeah, sorry about that.
Right. New year, new jar.
Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's transformative impact on the front players. Is this a fairly obvious thing that we should just have expected, that we should have anticipated, that a few minor tweaks would suddenly release the hounds that were ready to come from Manchester United players?
I think if we extract stuff from what we've all been talking about over the length of our professional friendship, professional careers, then something that Pat was giving you, I think, a microscopic understanding of confidence. Okay, he tweaked it in that he was talking about specific body shapes, the way in which Lukaku has gone from looking a little bit down in the dumps and clumsy, despite being one of the players who was wholly committed to Mourinho. And I think the broad brush approach, if you say should we have expected it, is that he mirrors, although the effect on each of them is maybe has a different cause, he mirrors what's happening right across that squad, which I think was not only blindingly obvious, but I know we've talked about, and I certainly have written about and said to you guys, that Mourinho was a drain on energy, that Mourinho was no longer applying as much attention to individual coaching, a flaw that he picked up in his second spell at Chelsea, if you ask anybody who witnessed particularly the sacking season in his second spell at Chelsea. Back turned to training, portfolio of information not as detailed as he once became famous for. And not only did his relationship with individual players at Manchester United break down, when I use that phrase that he was a drain on their energy, he was also a drain on their confidence. When you get, I take your underlying point that neither you nor Pat were calling Solskjaer a genius. He was applying his expertise, having been a very, very good striker. He was picking up on something that I think was pretty easy meat in saying to Lukaku and to Rashford and to Lingard and to Pogba and to Matic, here are the things that I know you do well. Here's how I want you to do them, fitting into a greater team pattern. And when you get better training sessions, when you get better enjoyment and above all, better confidence, then maybe your phrase about should we have expected it comes true. And I think the answer then is yes.
This leads us nicely to José Mourinho, who is being linked with an immediate return to Real Madrid because of the situation that Real Madrid find themselves in. We talked about this, I don't know, a couple of months ago. Almost was reminding us a little bit earlier on in the show. Is it that realistic that it could happen so quickly?
Realistic. Look, it's feasible. Would Florentino Perez, if things continue along the lines of the Eibar defeat away 3-0 for Santi Solari, if things were to continue along the lines of the way in which Real Madrid chucked away a viable win at Villarreal, 2-1 up, sat back, not only then lost the lead, but looked as if they might lose the game. Solari then defended his tactics, saying, well, draws are important. The media jumped all over him. His team went out and played ridiculously poorly against Real Sociedad. Solari made mistakes in who he picked, and therefore, if that were to repeat once or twice more, is Florentino Perez capable of sacking his interim coach? Yes, that's a fact. Should he do that? No, I don't think so. And when you ask for an actuarial assessment about realistic chance, Gerard, you have to bring in the Mourinho factor. Mourinho is one thing he hasn't lost is that he's savvy, he's scheming. I think I've said to you again in recent months ago, my belief that Mourinho had it as part of his grand plan that he could take over at Real Madrid from the summer. He saw that Real Madrid were ailing. The instant Zidane went away, he was knee-deep in Manchester United and expected to stay. He's twice turned down Florentino Perez since being sacked, the first time from Real Madrid. Florentino Perez's belief that Mourinho can set the club straight and can go on an aggressive attacking front foot against Football Club Barcelona is undiminished. That's a fact. Mourinho taking the job in mid-season with the nick that this squad is in, I think that's where your percentage chance diminishes. I think that when he's offered the job, he will say that I will take it in summer only. And at that point, he's putting himself up against candidates, because I think there are candidates. I'm not certain that Allegri will stay at Juventus at the end of the season. Joachim Low has said that he's ready for club football. Joachim Low has been an attractive proposition to Florentino Perez in the past. Pochettino is somebody that there is now a queue for, and I saw in recent hints that while he's saying he wants to stay forever and a day at Spurs, he's also saying quite difficult to win trophies without spending a bit more money. So he's at least a subject for discussion, although it'll be difficult to get clear. Mourinho taking over mid-season with the nick that this squad is in, I would be surprised.
It would be very interesting, though, even if it isn't now, but even at the end of the season, if Jose Mourinho does take over, and you would suspect that Perez would give him the backing, he would allow Jose Mourinho to do the things in the transfer window that Ed Woodward did not allow him to do at Manchester United. And it would be very intriguing to see then how the game management and the attitude of Jose Mourinho would then change. You talk about being aggressive and going on the front foot a little bit more. Could it prove that Jose Mourinho's tenure at Manchester United, particularly for the duration of this season, was just one big sulk because he didn't get what he wanted from the board?
Wow. If you want my honest opinion, having watched him, having spoken to people who've worked for him at, each of his last 4 clubs, my opinion is no. I think that he has lost something material. I think that he is the equivalent of Lukaku, but in managerial terms. I think that Jose Mourinho needs a professor. Somebody who is beyond the influence Jorge Mendes has on him in terms of here's your next financial move, here's the way that you can play this politically. I think Jose Mourinho's coaching manual, people use the phrase out of date, that everybody else has moved on and he hasn't. I think that's a really poor way of describing what's gone on. I think he's lost his way individually. I think that his coaching ideas are probably as relevant and potentially, when well applied with a squad fully behind him, I think he's potentially as damaging to other clubs and other teams as he once was. It's him who's changed. It's him who's lost his way. And the one long sulk idea, I think, is a good micro assessment of what's happened over the last few months. But in my opinion, the traces of what we saw at Manchester United were fully available in his last year at Real Madrid, were fully available for parts of his tenure at Chelsea. And therefore, I think that there's more wrong on than his petulance that he wasn't allowed to get the specific players that he asked for. Because I think it's legitimate, although Ed Woodward is no technical director, is no director of football, and needs to be moved aside. I think we can say that he did back him financially. It was a fallout over specifics that caused the rift. I think it's Mourinho who has the individual problem, and it's Mourinho who needs to change, not just his club situation or his relationship with a director of football.
Real Madrid are up against Ajax in the round of 16 in the Champions League. This is still a competition that this team and this collection of players could win. We've seen them have bad seasons and win Champions Leagues in the past. would that be the potential thing that might be able to tempt Mourinho to stand at the end of the season alone on the pitch, holding the trophy, going, yeah, I did this?
It's a really good question. It's a fair point. First of all, I back your assessment that were it to be the case that they could drop Marcelo, play Reguilón, get Nacho fully fit, so that it wasn't Varane and Ramos every single game, get Marcos Llorente anchoring the midfield, possibly once Casemiro is match fit, playing the two of them together. If Vinicius has got a little spark of life in him that he showed the other day in defeat at home to La Real, then your argument is sound. And yeah, there's a pattern whereby it doesn't need Real Madrid to be fully firing domestically in order to win the Champions League. And yeah, I take your point that if he did a SWOT analysis on Real Madrid and felt that Pintus, the fitness coach, was bringing this squad to the boil, there were some signs of that before Christmas. They won pretty handsomely in the World Club Championship, albeit against opposition that would have been bottom of the table, bottom third of the table in La Liga. I think that you've made an argument there. Yes, it is a sprint now to the Champions League. Ajax, although they are playing much better football, are a much more mature side. And although Wesley Sneijder, ex-Ajax, ex-Real Madrid, did a very big piece here over the holiday season saying if Real Madrid think they're going to pick Ajax off the way that Manchester United did in the Europa League, then they've misjudged them. This is a changed side. And I think that's a decent argument. And the sides that, for example, when you watch the way in which Levante and Eibar beat Real Madrid, to say that Ajax knocking them out of the Champions League is impossible would be utterly foolhardy. But yeah, I see your low-hanging fruit argument. I see how that could attract Jose Mourinho. I take that point.
One last thing we did want to talk to you about this week, Graham, was the legacy of Cesc Fabregas. Obviously, an emotional goodbye from him in the last game that he'll play probably in English football. And I know, obviously, that time that he had at Barcelona has come to be considered something of a failure around the rest of the world, given how amazing. There was a short period there where it looked like he was going to reach the full flower of his potential. And yet at the same time, this is a guy who's won 2 European championships, a World Cup, 2 league titles with Chelsea, a bunch of FA Cups, was club captain at Arsenal at 18. Like, it's been an amazing career.
Yeah, I think as well a remarkable footballer. I think there were spells when Cesc Fabregas played a brand of football which was iconic in the way that Europe began to reevaluate the use of the ball, position of football, short passing in triangles in order to drag opponents about, and he'll stay iconic for that. I think that one of the things that he had as well was a toughness. He's a really tough guy, tough on the pitch, tough off the pitch, and therefore he was able to handle the transition to Premier League football, which at that stage not every Spaniard was finding himself capable of doing. Where I think it might, if you're asking if it's fair that some of his legacy is a little bit tarnished, like Sergio Busquets, he needed more speed athletically. If he had been blessed with a little bit more athletic speed, then his durability to impose the things that he does really well would have lasted longer at a higher level, in my opinion. I also remember his character. I'm not sure if you listed that in his garlands, but I spoke to him and I spoke to Vicente Del Bosque a lot during the 2010 World Cup when Cesc was dropped and out. And he is a sulky guy. That's another thing that those who've worked around, you get either all sunshine or it's dark clouds and, a grim face from Cesc Fabregas around the training ground. And he was like that. Vicente Del Bosque said to me in an interview, in a chat in a corridor in one of the stadiums in the World Cup, Cesc is pissed off with me, and he's quite right to be too, because at his club he'd be an automatic choice. My next interview with Cesc, I said to him, how do you cope with this? I'll be ready. My job is to be ready. I'll be ready. Brought off the bench in the World Cup final. He is ready. He nicks onto the loose ball as I think Van der Vaart falls over in the penalty area, slots it to Iniesta, goal. I think that's a really decent, iconic moment in anybody's career, no?
Yeah, we were talking about tiers of midfielders in Premier League history, and obviously short Premier League. So there's Keane, there's Vieira, there's Scholes, then there's a secondary tier which has Lampard and Gerrard, and then just below that there's Cesc. Is that right?
Yeah, for a barroom discussion, for off-the-ball discussion, yeah. I don't know if Steven Gerrard and Lampard are saying, I wish I was on that next tier. when they look at their bank balances, when they look at the way the club fans feel about, when they look at their medals. I'd also like to throw in there Manu Petit, who, for my money, for maybe a shorter time than you're talking about, was utterly extraordinary. There will be others. Does Cesk's impact on the game match those that you've listed? No, it probably doesn't. And I would also say that part of that comes down to his ability to be fleet of foot and move away from tackles rather than pass away from tackles. It's a small component. It has afflicted Sergio Busquets, and the brain and the foot and the sort of geometric, the vision about angles, all those things were there. But other players that you've mentioned had different things, I do agree. But he's one of the most British of the Spaniards, says Fabregas, in my opinion.
One last point about that. Am I right in saying he was the first proper false nine in the Guardiola era? Because there was a season where before Christmas he had banged in 10, 12, 14 goals and then didn't score for the rest of the year.
Yeah, no, I mean, the way in which Guardiola stole the concept of a false nine, which obviously has roots in Hungarian football, and effectively Guardiola played with one, with Michael Laudrup, who is not a centre-forward, played as a false nine in that dream team on occasions when Romario didn't start or whatever, or Salinas. But Messi was the first reinvention of that concept for Pep Guardiola, at least in the 6-2, called him 2-3 nights before the 6-2 win away at the Bernabeu in his first season. But Fabregas, yes, played that. When Fabregas moved to the midfield at Football Club Barcelona, what happened was he was bombarded with the type of information, Open University PhD thesis stuff that Pep Guardiola felt, because Cesc could apply them on the pitch, that he would understand instantly. But because Fabregas had spent so long in English football with utterly different requirements placed on him, he actually admitted that he was confused, and that to compute all the information about position, about when to pass, about how many passes Guardiola wanted, how to drag opponents about, Cesc took a long time to compute that, looked a little bit lost in the pitch, and then came out and said, I'm struggling to compute all of this. At which point, yes, he did get used in that role, and that helped the Spain national team endlessly, because at the end of Pep's final season in 2012, Del Bosque used Fabregas as a false nine in the European Championships. Not every time against Ireland, of course. I bet you wish that he had, because Fernando Torres started and did quite well in Dansk, sorry about the mention. And Fabregas, therefore, that his club form and what he was asked to do by Guardiola was a direct spur to Spain winning 2012.
Graham, great stuff as ever. Thanks a million.
Lads.
It's Graham Hunter giving us some thoughts on Cesc.
The thing is, Cesc Fabregas is not retired from football.
Well, he has gone to Monaco, you know.
Who knows? Monaco
it's
could...
it's the new Major League Soccer.
Monaco or Ligue 1?
I mean, Monaco, really.
Like, you can't really say Ligue 1 is the MLS, because it's not really a retirement home as a league. Like, we'll see what Monaco do next season. Give Henry a full year in charge.
Give me a hot take.
I can't even say that without laughing.
Give me a hostage to fortune right now that we will print on your tombstone.
Give me
Monaco are going to do something under Thierry.
Well, to be honest, I didn't even get through that sentence without laughing. Thierry Henry, if he's Monaco manager this time next year, will be doing well, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
I don't think, and maybe I'm too harsh here, I don't think he's cut out for management. Maybe he would have been a good person in the Martinez camp, but like, we had Christophe Terreur on this show before the World Cup last year, and he was like, Henry is the first person at the training ground, the first person to leave. Or sorry, the last person at the training ground and the first person to leave. It kind of isn't as tuned into it as, say, Roberto Martinez is, for example, or other young managers are.
Graham obviously made the Barcelona documentary. Thierry Henry is one of the stars of it, and he's brilliant. His analysis of the goals and stuff, but his understanding of everything and his ability to communicate that is excellent in his second language. So it'll be interesting to see if he is a failure as a manager. I like maybe the Villa job, or one of those lower tier English football jobs where you get in, you fail at that, and then you get a Monaco job and you're like, okay, I've made my mistakes now, I understand what I'm supposed to do, as opposed to going straight in at Monaco. Would have been the...
Like, there is every chance that no matter who the manager was there, like, anybody on the up would have been struggling just like Thierry is.
Whatever about Wesley Sneijder saying that this Ajax team won't roll over for Real Madrid, we saw Ajax play against Benfica and they're grand.
Yeah. Like
they're grand.
Real Madrid got a great draw.
Yeah. They are a bunch of kids.
That Ajax team is going to be a collection of individuals that we look back and say, wow, what a team. But
it's a real pity they couldn't keep them all together as they go on and do great things for other teams.
Like every Ajax team ever in the last 30 years.
Yeah.
So, it's a fantastic draw for Real Madrid. It's a good shout, actually, that they go on and win the Champions League. I think Perez picks up the phone to José Mourinho now and says, who do you want? Do you want 2 centre-backs, a striker? To be honest, that's a Manchester United solution. Whatever you want, I'll give it to you right now. And let's go and have a crack at this thing. Although the thing is, when you make signings for the Champions League, they might not be able to play.
How are you pronouncing the Spurs manager?
Pochettino.
Review loop on our YouTube comments. There's a dark hole. Says, stop mispronouncing Pochettino. Okay, thanks. It's an Italian surname, not Spanish, you illiterate ginger hacks.
Oh, that's a shame, isn't it? I am illiterate. I am ginger as well, so he is accurate on that. What's wrong with Pochettino? His first name, maybe?
Maurizio.
I'm sure Review Loop can
maybe the
CH
is a K, so it should be Pochettino. But I've never heard anybody call it that.
I have, and I assumed it was wrong.
Who?
Maybe it was Review Loop that I was watching. Maybe I have heard people say Pochettino, but I just assumed it was wrong.
You can WhatsApp us, but we never give the number out. Why is that? I don't know why that is. Why do we never give the number out, Tommy? Tommy's down in his own wormhole. Why do we never give the WhatsApp number out? He says, I don't know. But so if we have a WhatsApp number, we'll stick it in our Twitter byline, and you can record the sound record as a video of you, Mr. Review Loop, saying Maurizio Pochettino.
Yeah, I'm sure that's definitely going to happen. Delightful young person there, or old person. I don't know what age that person is. Do you want to know who the world's most valuable player is?
Yeah, 10-1, the world's most valuable player.
Who do you think? Give me. Have you seen the headlines already?
No, I haven't seen any of this.
Right. So,
what's the criteria?
So basically, the International Centre for Sports Studies, which is the CIES, the FIFA-backed organisation, they've done it for the last 5-6 years, where they assess footballers' market values. They have an algorithm based on form, transfer history, duration of contract, marketability, nationality, and country of employment. So this is according to the Irish Examiner, that this is what the criteria are. So
So am I buying this player at a price?
Yes.
So am I buying this player and getting 1 year out of them? Is it right now, this moment?
No, basically what they have, they've come up with a market value for each player.
Kylian Mbappe is the most valuable player in world football for all sorts of reasons. Because
we'll see about that.
Well, no, it depends, right? If I'm starting, say the Premier League is formed and you have to buy in, and I am the owner, I'm the billionaire owner of a franchise, the first player on my team sheet is Kylian Mbappe.
Okay.
Not Neymar, not Ronaldo, not Messi at this point, because I know that I will have him for 8 to 10 years for the peak years of his career. And so that would be my criteria, which is possibly a bit different.
Well, so you think Mbappe is number one on this list?
If I want to sell shirts, the first player on my list is Cristiano Ronaldo.
Okay.
If I want to win this year, the first player on my team is Leo Messi, and then potentially after that.
Okay, so you're going Mbappe number one. Where do you think Ronaldo and Messi are before I reveal the list?
Well, it depends. My criteria changed there.
Okay, so who do you think has got the highest market value?
Probably Ronaldo, disgustingly.
Right, okay, so Ronaldo's your number one, really, not Mbappe.
No,
Would I just go through the list and allow you to think about it? Think about it while I'm going through the list. So
number 10, who's number 10?
Number 10 is Leroy Sané at a market value of €156.1 million.
Okay, so this is just the transfer fee today to buy him.
Well, you see, there's no such thing as a transfer fee. Like, Manchester City probably have a private value on Leroy Sané, but we don't know. It's not like you go into Football Manager and say, oh, that person has a transfer fee.
Yeah, buyout.
Transfer fees don't exist until you actually pay the fee and have the negotiation.
Well, there's a buyout clause for a lot of these guys.
Well, the buyout clause is not included here. This is the actual value. Some people are undervalued by their buyout clause. Some people are overvalued by their buyout clause. So
okay.
Can we just get with the program here? This is all hypothetical.
No.
You're ruining this before I've even started it. Number 9 is Philippe Coutinho, €157 million.
Really?
Yeah. There was
the 9th most covetable player in the world.
There was some suggestion yesterday that Philippe Coutinho could be going to Manchester United, or that Manchester United are going to sign him. I would love to see how Liverpool fans react to that. At number 8, Romelu Lukaku. €162 million is what this FIFA-backed organisation are putting him as when it comes to his market value.
On a point of information, I think that Romelu Lukaku's inclusion in the top 10 ruins the entire. He is the virus that has made this whole thing explode. I'm sorry, he's the botulism in the middle of this nice pile of scrambled eggs.
Well, you know what? There's statistics against you, and I don't really care about your opinion anymore on this. Number 7 is Lionel Messi, 171.2 million.
No! It's number 7.
Number 7, yeah.
This list is bullshit.
It's not bullshit,
He
okay?
can't be number 7. It's Lionel Messi. He's not number 7 in any list in the world ever.
When it comes to football, this is about transfer value. The guy's old. The guy's old. Number 6 is Paulo Dybala, 171.9 million euros, so just about ahead of his...
Messi's 31. He's not old. He can play at this level at 35 or 36.
Well, we'll see where your other two suggestions are in Ronaldo and Mbappe. Number 5 is Mo Salah, 184.3 million euro. Number 4 is an interesting one. It's Raheem Sterling, 185.8 million euro. Neymar is number 3, 197.1 million euro. And then 1 and 2 are both valued at over 200 million euro. Number 2 is Harry Kane. So either Ronaldo or Mbappe is not making this top 10.
Ronaldo's not making the top 10.
Number 1 is Kylian Mbappe, 218.5 million euro, according to CIES, the world's MVP.
He is.
Yeah,
I get that.
I get that too. I think that's fair. I think
Harry Kane is number 2.
Harry Kane is number 2. I guess there's multiple factors. The fact that you're playing in the Premier League, the exposure to massive television audiences, the age, the talent, and I guess the fact that you are a forward as well.
Yeah, I mean his continual ability to score goals when it looks like he's had a drought, and then he just he scores every type of goal. He scores tap-ins. He scores like the goal the other night. I'm like, just mark Harry Kane. He's not going to score from there. Oh wait, he's just scored from like 30 yards. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's what he tends to do. That was against Tranmere though.
No. This was
you mean the other one against Wolves?
Yeah.
Well, the one that they lost. You mean the one since then? Harry Kane's had a good couple of weeks.
He's had a good couple of weeks.
And coming second to this list has just furthered it.
Leo Messi cannot be number 7 on this list.
Well, he can be.
Yeah, but the list is bullshit then. How much is it going to cost you right now to buy Leo Messi?
Okay.
That's the price? No. That's what they're saying?
Market value. So you to actually get him, you'll probably have to go well above market value because it's Lionel Messi. Because it's the greatest footballer of all time.
Well, then the value that the market places on him is higher than the market value. That's the whole point about market value. This is like a made-up market value, and the actual market value will be way more.
Do you have any qualifications in economics?
No.
Well, there's a reason why that is.
Okay, well, it was a great segment.
That's it.
Well done.
That's me done. I'm not complying with anything else ever.
You can defend it there. So they've been assessing footballers' market values for the past 5 years using an algorithm based on a range of factors: form, transfer history, duration of contract, marketability, nationality, and country of employment.
Yeah,
so
I literally said that earlier.
Racial profiling and a bunch of other stuff.
It's not racial profiling, really. It's country of employment. Nationality's there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is racial profiling.
Okay, so if you want to send us a voice note, you can send it to 083 112 8154. That's country code plus 353, obviously. 083 11 28 154. Send us whatever you want and we'll publish it all. It'll go straight online. There will be no filter. Just send us whatever you want and we will straight up. No one ever slides into our DMs.
Speak for yourself, Ger.
I mean the off the ball one.
Oh, sorry. Whoa, okay. There we go. The mask has slipped.
Yeah, what do you get?
Nobody's ever slid into my DMs, which is, I'm not sure, is that sad or is it something I should be appreciative of?
Yeah, okay. So Man United have announced that they are going to launch the first Manchester United Entertainment and Experience Centre. Where do you think it's going to be?
Manchester.
What part of the world is it going to be? The Manchester United Entertainment and Experience Centre. 3 of them at the same time.
Los Angeles.
3 of them at the same time in the same country.
Well, the United States.
Beijing, Shanghai, and Shenyang by the end of 2020.
Wow. That's I'm surprised that the Chinese government hasn't actually just put a stop to that immediately. If they really want to win the World Cup some year, it's just they've trying to create their own sort of organic footballing culture, and it just seems that they're more and more capable of being penetrated by Premier League teams.
Well, we could have a look at the promo video that they've released here as well. Have a look at this.
Not just focus on history. Respect the tradition and tell the future generation how to become great.
There's a number of things that having an entertainment centre will offer. The first is a place to go and have that shared experience. So much about supporting Manchester United is that togetherness, the togetherness of the fans, togetherness of the team, and having a location where everyone goes is really important. I think that the technology and what that offers and operates in terms of providing a really engaging sense of what it's like to be at Old Trafford or at the game or on the pitch is going to be really interesting. And then finally, the chance to do things as a family that you'd normally do, whether that's eat, shop, or just spend time together, I think it's going to be really exciting.
Or spend money. If you as a family want to spend money, spend it with us.
I wanted to do match day experiences because that's actually something that sounds like a fairly functional thing.
Go and watch a match together.
As in, like, United are in the 12:30 kickoff, 8:30 on the Saturday night. Go down to your local Manchester United Experience Centre and go support your team with people thousands and thousands of miles away.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, it's a war out there. You've got to win in every possible way you can. You've got to win China. Chelsea have just won the American vote with the Pulisic. The World Cup's going to be in, Pat Nevin made this point last night, the World Cup's going to be in America just as Pulisic rises to that point of global superstardom. Chelsea will already own him at that point. And then the 60 million they're spending on him will look like a bargain.
Unless Chelsea do to Pulisic what they've done to every other Chelsea kid ever, and he goes out on loan to Bournemouth and becomes I don't know what he becomes, but like there is every chance that the transfer doesn't look as smart in a year's time as it does now.
Well,
it's very much a TBC. Like there's been a lot of takes either side of this. People saying it's great value, and there's been tons of Chelsea fans. If you look at even the social media around the day that he was signed, that are saying that this is a big overpayment on a player who perhaps is a tad overrated. I don't believe that myself. I think he's got huge potential. If I've got huge potential, am I going to Chelsea, though, is the question, and I'm not so sure.
But why did Chelsea buy him?
Well, there is a commercial aspect to that,
100%.
sure. No, you're right.
Like, and if some manager gets the best out of him, great, and if some manager doesn't get the best out of him, he will play in all those friendlies that we play when we go over there as Chelsea next season and the year after and the year after, or if he goes out on loan for a year and then comes back just in time for the World Cup.
The question is who's going to win the Middle East?
Wayne Rooney, I think, has already won the Middle East with his trip to Saudi Arabia.
I see Arsene Wenger this morning has been linked with the Qatar job, which has now become the most talked about job in modern football. The Qatar job. Who is it going to be? Is it going to be José Mourinho? Is it going to be Arsene Wenger? Probably be Carlos Queiroz.
Danny B says, let's be real, Tyke Furlong is a once-in-a-generation tight head. I place him above Sexton and Toner on the list of people we can't afford to get injured for the World Cup. Sexton and Toner, that's an interesting list. Yeah. The gap is closing a little bit from Furlong to Andrew Porter, but Tyke Furlong is the best player in the world in his position, and Johnny Sexton's obviously the best player in the world in his position at the moment, but like Sexton and Bowden Barrett, pretty close. Tyke Furlong and the next tight head, big gap.
Yeah, there's no argument about that. There is an argument about Sexton versus Barrett.
Those Premiership midfield tiers still adhere to the notion that picking great Premiership teams seems to stop in the early 2000s. Lampard and Gerrard are in that tier if Scholes is. I mean, maybe they are. I'm not sure.
Stops in the early 2000s as in no one in the last 10 years can get in.
Yeah.
Well, I guess you got to wait and see. Like, does N'Golo Kante become a top tier or a second tier midfielder in a few years' time with a couple of more Premier League medals? Potentially.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think he's probably already in that Lampard and Gerrard tier.
Probably tier 3.
I mean, he's won a World Cup.
There is that, but we are talking about Premier League midfielders.
I know, but he was the best player in that team that won the World Cup. I mean, obviously Kylian Mbappe was like the most explosive player, but
most effective player.
Yeah.
I still think he's
not even getting a mention.
Like, I do think that all N'Golo Kante has to do is show up for the next 5 years in the Premier League and get to that level. But right now, you have to say he hasn't done what Lampard and Gerrard. Okay, I've just absolutely contradicted myself. Premier League performances only, and I put Gerrard above N'Golo Kante when Kante has 2 more titles than Gerrard. But I still think it's just another couple of years before he reaches that level of greatness and just being a Premier League icon.
Yeah, I think that it'll probably happen. I think that it's probably already there.
I think in terms of the skill set.
Yeah, the impact of the team. Did you say Fernandinho? Tommy's saying Fernandinho. He says it's being tongue-in-cheek, but, all he needs to do is get injured again. He's going to be the greatest player of all time.
Kevin De Bruyne has to be on that path as well. Because let's not judge this in the last 3 months.
Is De Bruyne like a proper out-and-out midfielder?
Well, I suppose you wouldn't consider David Silva on that list, and essentially he's been playing the same position as David Silva when they've both been playing together for the last 12, 18 months. So I guess no, technically.
Include David Silva more likely on that list.
Than De Bruyne?
He's a little bit further back, doesn't he? De Bruyne is a forward. Like, whatever part of the pitch he plays in.
He's an advanced 8, just like David Silva.
All right. Good stuff today.
No, good stuff yourself.
You rescued it with the 10 most expensive, most valuable players ever. By putting, I can't believe you put Leo Messi. I can't believe you didn't pick Leo Messi. We had to throw out Owen's FIFA team when he didn't pick Leo Messi in it.
I still keep getting likes on that tweet. I got one the other day. Some guy liking his own, some probably 7-year-old liking his own tweet, saying that I'm an absolute wanker or something for not putting Lionel Messi into the team.
He's right, you are. And now you put him number 7 on your list.
Well, like
why do you hate Leo Messi?
If you're picking a front 3 here, Lionel Messi doesn't even make the bench. So you've got Mbappe, Kane and Neymar up front. And then Sterling, Salah and Dybala coming off the bench. 3 subs done. Lionel Messi, you're not going to get a game today, son.
Coming up tonight on the radio, on News Talk and Off the Ball, Park Harrington will talk about the captaincy of the European team for the 2020 Ryder Cup, the life and death of boxer Tommy Morrison, better known as Tommy Gunn in Rocky 5. And Dan McDonald's going to be in studio. And we will also see you tomorrow morning at 7:45 a.m. If you've got any questions for us, you can always just use the hashtag OTBAM. We'll pick up all the tweets a little bit later on. We see all the comments that you leave on our live stream on YouTube, on facebook.com/offtheball, where I hope you're all subscribers, and likewise on youtube.com/offtheball. Good luck, see you.